Thank you, Jennifer, for that fantastic talk. And I asked that we be reversed in order because I knew that you would flow so well into what I have to say, but what I didn't anticipate is you would be so good. And now I'm really nervous. I apologize. I sent the wrong set of slides. As you can see, I'm a little not good at computer work and I'm left-handed. I sent this wrong set of slides, but here is the irony of the slides you're going to see. National Academy of Sciences, Medicine, and Engineering, just a few months ago, first of all, they issued a comprehensive report that had survey data in it. And second of all, they held a, well, I guess you might describe it as kind of a listening meeting. And it started out with two panels of young students, graduate students, and very junior faculty telling about their harassment experiences. And I decided, kind of on the spur of the moment, that I would stand up and talk about mine, which the most serious one happened when I was at a little bit beyond their stage of career. And my intention was to give an arc to, like, so what happens when you're at the end of your career, looking back. I had never talked about this, my own experiences publicly. I had no idea that after so many years, I carried, I didn't use your terminology specifically, Jennifer, but the way I ended my story, which took my entire time to tell, was that there hasn't been a day I haven't thought about it, and that I do not feel like a survivor. I still feel like a victim. My experience happened when Clarence Thomas was the head of the EEOC, and it was going through the system the same time as the Anita Hill hearings. So I lost at every level, as you might imagine, and had horrible things said about me. When Christine Blasey Ford went in front of the Senate more recently, whereas Anita Hill I watched every minute, this time I couldn't watch it almost at all. I've watched a tiny little amount. I'm sharing this with you because I think it's helpful to understand sometimes that scientific advance is not always just the intellectual and what you read and coming from that kind of analysis, but it also inevitably gets influenced, maybe even by unconscious forces. But when you look back, you realize, oh, now I see why I had personally invested so much energy in this subject. Well, I'm going to spend so much time on this slide, you're going to get bored with it. But so I'm here to talk about restorative justice options. It's the response to point 4 on your slide about accountability, some other word, and apology. I'm going to be interviewed by Meredith Smith, and so she's your Title IX coordinator, as you all know. And I'm trying to put up here a slide that kind of breaks, from my non-lawyer perspective, breaks the flow of what has to happen when a report of something that falls under Title IX or Title VI, the employment side of harassment. So in orange, well, first of all, let's do columns, and then we'll do orange boxes. So everything starts with, there's got to be a report, because you can't expect your institution to respond to something they don't know about. And So after a preliminary report, what is the first determination a university is going to make is it actionable, and does it involve individual people, or is it actionable but it's a whole college, or even in some cases a whole campus, or a lab, I mean some identifiable larger group of people. And below that I have the cases where something wrong happened, but it is not actionable under law or under even the student conduct code of the university. The column on the right is what you would call the conventional response. It's the quasi-criminal justice response that in particular has been shaped by the 2011 Dear Colleague letter, which had, I think, as public policy, very unintended and negative consequences, because the field of student conduct management, student affairs in general, had been at that point, prior to that point, working through getting criminal language out of their materials and decriminalizing their ways of dealing with sexual misconduct. 2011 letter comes out and basically prescribes, under threat of losing federal funding, a process that was overly informed, as Jennifer mentioned, by legal mind thinking. I've met with these people, and they were all attorneys. I'm thinking, isn't there anybody who worked on that 2000 letter who wasn't an attorney? But they didn't send anybody who wasn't. So the right column is your traditional adversarial investigation, your traditional and oftentimes Darvoed institutional response. And in today's climate, because of Betsy DeVos's concerns, and Candace Jackson, came into the job without really appropriate experience. So some of the first people she talked to were the men who claimed false accusations of perpetration. And she kind of equated that these were equal things and that there was some kind of lack of due process going on because there was this equal group of people who were falsely accused. So now we're seeing institutional response shift to less expulsion, less suspension, because they get sued. Now they're getting sued more by perpetrators than by victims. So that's where this last box is on here, because even when you have an institutional response of a adversarial judicial hearing, you're going to have to eventually reintegrate this person into a campus, or they will go on to another campus where they'll be reintegrated. 2 minutes. I never get through this slide anyway. So there are forms of restorative justice that Donna is going to talk more about that can be injected into the conventional process. There are restorative justice approaches that can be used for climate and for non-actionable. The form of restorative resolution I use is when there's an identifiable victim and a perpetrator takes responsibility. In question, some of the things that could come out is there are many forms of TJ, and I have them listed here. They are not mutually exclusive from restorative justice, but they all refer to different things. That one of the differentiators of restorative justice is that it clearly, before it starts, identifies a wronged person and a wrongdoer. It acknowledges that there's never just one victim. there's a direct victim, first degree, there's family and friends who are the second circle, and then there's the larger community, which in the case of college students is what you can see from here. It's the whole campus gets affected. And what does reintegration mean? Well, I personally believe that you have to earn reintegration, and that you don't earn reintegration just by apologizing, that you earn it by doing the things that are listed here, so that after a period of time, the wronged person feels that as much as possible, reparations, restoration, resolution has taken place. Wait, don't look at that. This one. Right here on this slide are, first of all, what I just said. Second of all, the ways other forms of restorative justice can help reintegrate people after they go through either of those streams, conventional or restorative. The third point has to do with how do you get RJ started on a campus? And the last part is, where do students fall into this whole picture? You're going to also hear from Ray later this afternoon. There's apparently 3 historians here, which I think is really cool. And so I'm going to end with history. And here is the history. So look at the title. Look at that it was presented at an Academy of Sciences. And now look at the date. I have been at this for 19 years. And today you could still not point to a university where on any mouse step scale they have implemented individual, directly harmed party resolution using restorative methods for sexual assault. Many schools will claim they're doing restorative justice. I showed you all the different forms. That is happening. It is happening for sexual assault. But there's that big column of what happens between me and you that leaves me feeling like I took my power back, so that I don't have to live my life as a victim. I can live my life as a survivor. Most campuses don't make that available, and what you're reading in the media is people who do it themselves, and it is very unsafe because there is no form of restorative justice that is intended to be self-administered. Okay, I'm ready for it. All right. Yeah, I actually had one other slide that I'll get off of. You see this, I'm in public health, and this is a t-shirt someone made for us for the clothesline project. And so she has her heart with the Band-Aid put on it. So maybe that's a better image to end with than the negative one.